Welcome, friends, to another episode of the Big Picture Business Podcast. We hope you're doing really well. Today, we've got someone with us that we're so excited to introduce you to. His name is Brendan McCoy, and I know that you're going to get so much value out of listening to this episode. He is an accountant, and Rory, why don't you go ahead and let everyone know a little bit more about Brendan?
Well, like you said, Brendan is a small business accountant and the owner of the Perfect Accounting System. What's interesting is that his focus has been on Etsy, but he also helps people not only with Etsy, but with other e-commerce businesses and online businesses. He's actually helped hundreds and hundreds of businesses all over the world with their accounting, with their taxes, and with their overall business health. I'm really excited that we're in the chat today with you, Brendan. So welcome to the Big Picture Business Podcast.
Yeah, awesome. I really appreciate you guys having me here.
Yeah. I just have to say, before we get into questions and all that, is I met you through Instagram.
Yes.
And I have to just really emphasize this one key factor about you in general is that you're funny, man. Like, the stuff you post, I mean, I see hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of Instagram accounts every week, right? Like I'm looking at different stuff, but yours really stood out to me just from a humor standpoint.
And we were talking just, before we hopped on here, humor is so important. It's such an important aspect of presenting yourself online because people need to connect with you and realize that you're a real person.
Right.
And your website and your Instagram does that really well.
Well, I appreciate that.
It really, really does. Yeah. So I just had to say that for anyone who is listening or seeing Brendan for the first time, we'll put in the show notes, obviously, toward the end, like how you can connect with him. But his Instagram is hilarious and you have to go see it. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So tell us, how did you get started in this business? Like what's your story? How did you become an accountant?
Yeah, sure. So I graduated back when the economy was really bad. Back in 2013, I graduated college. And it was kind of like a bad time. And the only reason I really decided to study accounting was my mom said, like, I'm a mama's boy. So she kind of said, like, you can always get a job if you're an accountant. So I studied accounting, graduated. I went to work for like a number of like big four accounting firms, more regional, firms and things like that. And about 3 years ago, I left those firms and I started to work for myself. And I do bookkeeping, accounting, QuickBooks for small businesses all across the country, all across, many different states and things like that. But it all kind of got started about 3 years ago through Craigslist, actually. That was kind of my first couple of clients. I posted on there. I always wanted to work for myself. Like I always wanted to be a business owner, but I didn't really know I'm not really that creative, and I didn't really have I wasn't going to open a pizza shop. So I was like, all right, well, I have this skill. I know how to do like accounting and bookkeeping, and it's a service that a lot of businesses need. Every business needs to do their taxes. So I knew that there was like demand for it. But finding the clients, I kind of started from the bottom. I posted on Craigslist a bunch, started getting a bunch of clients, and kind of built my way up to where I am now.
So, we talked about Etsy. Like, why Etsy? Why did you decide to focus on that?
So Etsy's funny. The reason I decided to focus on that, I do have a lot of different industries as clients. For some reason, I'll call them creative businesses, Etsy, handmade, seller, people that are kind of creative, are generally very, very lost when it comes to the numbers side of the business. So the reason I kind of focused on the Etsy side of it was because typically they're the most confused when it comes to how do I do the taxes, what I do about the bookkeeping, things like that. So I knew that they needed a little bit of extra help, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I mean, you saw the market and you went for it, and that makes sense because yes, I have seen that as well in my own business. Is the creative minds, they're not thinking so much about the bigger picture of the business,
Yes.
right? And keeping it moving. It's more like, let me make what I need to make today and be done, right?
Yeah, that's exactly how it was. And my first client, an Etsy seller, she was pretty successful. And she was like, I kind of vibed with her a little bit. Like, we got along really well. And I think we got along well because we were totally opposite in kind of how we thought and what we were doing. But I knew a lot of her friends also were like lost when it came to how to do anything numbers related.
I love the sheer brutal honesty that you share on your website that just says, let's face it, you suck at numbers. You just do. Yeah, that cracked me up. And yeah, there's a lot of businesses out there. And I think you mentioned this on your site too, where perhaps in that same story with your first client, where she had no idea that her business was not performing well, that it was actually failing, right?
Yeah. A lot of business owners don't really take a look behind the curtains.
Yeah. They just see the money coming in saying things must be good, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Out of the percentage of business owners that you've worked with, what would you say you kind of like rip off the Band-Aid for them and say, look, your business really isn't successful. It's actually failing and losing money. Is it a high percentage?
Higher than you would think. Yeah. A lot of business owners really just look at the cash in the bank, which is good. You know, you obviously want and need cash in the bank. Mm-hmm. As far as a percentage, 75% are either underestimating or underestimating. Wow. Sometimes underestimating, which is good. Mm-hmm. But I'd say 75%, they'll think they made $100,000 or $200,000 or $1 million, and that's not really close.
Not the case.
They're probably living their lifestyle like they are.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Like you have to know your numbers. We talk about that a lot on this podcast. It's like you're dead in the water before you can do anything. You have to know your numbers. So we're excited that you're here to really drive that home for our listeners.
Yes. Yeah.
You mentioned that one of your other clients was a hydrocolon therapy.
Yes. Tell us about that. That's awesome to have on the resume.
That was a Craigslist client. Still is a client today. It's a very interesting business. She does really well, though.
I love that you brought up Craigslist. Some of my current clients, the ones that have been with me the longest, I actually got from Craigslist. And Rory and I met over 10 years ago through Craigslist, too. So,
yeah, we have this like thread of Craigslist just through everything that we've done. And with the podcast, multiple people that, we've interviewed, become friends with them somehow through Craigslist and clients we've met and things like that. It's crazy what a platform like that can do.
I read one time that it's the most visited website in the whole world. That could be completely wrong, but I could have swore that it was like some crazy number like that.
Yeah, it's definitely, I'd say,
up there.
Top 5, because you think about it, like, maybe YouTube and
Google,
Facebook and Google in and of itself are like getting some big traction,
Billions.
But yeah, for websites outside of that sphere, I mean, it gets so much traffic. And so just as a side note, okay, so are you still marketing through Craigslist?
Here and there, yeah. I definitely have gone away from it a little bit just because I have a lot of like word of mouth referrals, and I have enough business to like, I'm kind of pushing business away, at this point. But if I'm bored and, there's things I can do, I'll go in there, but not as much anymore.
So someone who's just starting out and they're looking for like a way to get clients and they don't have a lot of money to invest, and they're thinking, oh, well, you guys have been using Craigslist to build your businesses. What would you recommend that they do, like maybe like top 3 strategies that have worked for you?
So Craigslist, let's see, top 3 strategies. So the one, I guess now with the coronavirus too, this would be a good one, but you can post outside of just the city that you're in. So like I would post all over the whole country, like Florida. I would always get a ton of clients in Florida. Arizona is another big one. I think the biggest thing though is like when you make your ad, you have to make it like you're a real person. Well, I mean, which you obviously are, but like you see a lot of those like scammer ads out there. Like my ad is, hey, my name is Brendan. I can help you with QuickBooks and accounting. So I think like kind of making making it personal and saying like, hey, it's Joe from down the street. I think that's the number one thing that you can do.
Well, I also want to point out is that then it translates to your website because you write in the same way. Yeah. And that's one of the like foundations of marketing. Whenever you're advertising, it needs to translate to the next step that they take. If they're going to your website, that's the next step. And so having that kind of personalized writing on both your website and Craigslist makes that transition very easy for them.
Yeah. I read something one time, like I was trying to figure out how to do it myself, and somebody said, it was one of these ads, and it was just say, put your name out there, because nobody wants to put their name on Craigslist. So you put your name out there, hey, my name is Brendan, I help with QuickBooks, and here's how you can reach me. It's just that simple. This one ad that I have in there, it only costs $5. it has made me thousands and thousands of dollars. Like, it's crazy. But that would be my number one strategy, just being personable and like not a corporate, lingo or anything like that. Yeah.
Really, really solid advice. And it's like you said, because of COVID, you can post anywhere, all over the place now. You're not just, you don't have to stay in one location. So that's great advice.
Yeah.
So, it's amazing.
We talked about Etsy and hydrocolon therapy, but how does what you teach and what you do for your clients apply to other industries?
As far as like the bookkeeping?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you need to know how much money you're bringing in and how much money you're spending, and regardless of what kind of business that you have or what business that you're in. So I think every industry, regardless of what you sell or if you're personal services or anything like that, it's kind of the same principles applied to every industry, I guess, if that makes sense, as far as like what you need to do for the accounting and the bookkeeping and things like that.
Cool. So, I've worked with several accounts over the years. A lot of them focus on one specific state, but it seems like you focus on a bunch of different states. How do you work that? How do you get that so that you can work with anyone regardless of the state they're in?
So I don't really do the taxes themselves. So that's where, like, if you're a CPA, you need to be licensed in Pennsylvania, for example. You can't really do the taxes in other states. So I really just kind of focus on the bookkeeping, and the bookkeeping principles are the same. Like, there's no difference between California and Pennsylvania or anything like that. The only thing that really matters state to state is like sales tax. That's kind of the biggest thing, but the bookkeeping doesn't change. So that's how I can kind of go throughout the country and do the same, hey, I need to get my books done kind of a thing, or I need you to work on my QuickBooks. It's all the same. There's no regulations or anything like that.
I never knew that. I'm actually like sitting here shocked that I didn't know that. I thought that it was different between states.
The only other thing would be like payroll. So if you have payroll like in the state of California versus state of Pennsylvania, that's a little bit different as far as like how you apply it. But, the tax laws, the only thing that really changes are like the sales tax laws and some of the actual state income tax and things like that.
Okay. So what you're doing is you're doing all the bookkeeping, you're setting up all the systems,
prepping
exactly for a CPA to just do their job at the end of the year, right?
That, or for the business owner to go and do it with them, like go on TurboTax. Like you take the reports, you take the books, and all you really need out of any type of system is just your profit and loss or your general ledger. And then, half of my clients just go on TurboTax and take the information I give them and just fill it all out themselves. If they're a little more advanced, they'll, use a CPA or something like that. But yeah, you can just kind of do it yourself. But I'll typically just prepare everything for them. Nice.
So are you like a QuickBooks master?
Yes, I am like a QuickBooks Pro advisor.
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
okay.
So that's another, if anybody is looking to get started out, the QuickBooks has its own directory, and you're like state by state. If you search for like QuickBooks in like a help feed, like I'll show up there.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's another, for somebody that if they want to start out.
Yeah, I actually use that myself. I do live bookkeeping. Shout out to Brenda for keeping my books healthy. I highly recommend, yes, to all of our listeners, if you're not paying attention to the numbers or you're not familiar with QuickBooks, hire someone like Brendan. It makes perfect sense to answer all your questions.
So one of the other things that I was wondering, so you called your business the perfect accounting system. Maybe you can explain what you feel the perfect accounting system really is.
So the perfect system is, there's a lot of different ways that people do the books. A lot of people don't understand like the actual way that it should be done. Like they'll go on YouTube or they'll go learn from somebody else, and they'll think that they're really doing the right things. But the perfect system kind of follows like a streamlined of, here's exactly what you need to do every single month, every single week to have like perfect reports and reports that are accurate and useful. It kind of goes over everything, as far as like what I do with receipts, what I do about inventory, what I do about sales tax. But as far as like what the perfect system is, it is like a defined process of, here's exactly how you should do this. Like, here's exactly how I do this, so that you can have the same information that I have.
Okay. So could you share a few of those steps so that people can understand what that kind of looks like?
Yeah. So the first step is actually doing it. That's like half of the battle. A lot of people wait until the quarter ends or the year ends and they don't have anything together. So they just take their bank statements and they'll put it in Excel and they think they have everything. So doing it is half of the battle. The other half is getting it into like an actual accounting system like QuickBooks or something like that and doing something called reconciling. Reconciling is like the probably most key thing that you can do in bookkeeping or accounting. And basically all you're doing is just saying, okay, here's what happened in the bank account. I also know that it happened in my accounting system. So I have every single transaction recorded. Mm-hmm. A lot of people miss a lot of like common deductions or, receipts or income that comes in that they may not have done if they didn't have it in like an actual system itself.
What's the biggest mistake you've seen someone make with their accounting?
The biggest mistake. I had a recent client actually. So this guy is in California too, and he was selling on PayPal. So when you're selling on PayPal or like a marketplace, you get something called a 1099K, mm-hmm. which basically is just saying, hey, PayPal gave you $25,000. So he just completely like ignored it and didn't really worry about it. So 2 years later, the IRS said, hey, you owe us 30% of this, $25,000. Mm-hmm. So he paid them the $6,000, but he didn't realize that like in order to sell the $25,000, he like also spent $20,000 on legitimate expenses. Hmm. So his like real bill should have only been like $1,000 and he gave him $6,000. Yeah. Ooh. So it was kind of like a nightmare. And then he called me and called my like colleague who kind of does the taxes and was like, hey, like, did I mess this up? Like, I don't know why I'm paying $6,000. I didn't make $25,000. So that was probably the biggest mistake I've seen in my, Yeah.
Well, but also one that you could have, I guess next time you can point that out to another client that's like, no, like let's dive through this and look at this first before you just write a check, right?
Yeah. Anytime that you get like a letter from the IRS, you should definitely send it to your accountant.
Question it.
Yeah, and say, what exactly is this?
Yeah. Well, tell us more about your course. Now, I know that you said that you were just working on a course, you finished it up, and you're ready to launch it into the world. Tell us more about that.
The course is specifically for Etsy and handmade sellers. Nice. And what the course does is it goes over everything that you need to do as an Etsy or a handmade store. It starts off with what you do when you first start out, like what LLC should you get? Should you even be an LLC? Because there's some of the business structures, the things that you need to do as a new business, like get a business bank account, license and permits, things like that.
And you walk people how to do that? And advise
them? So I'll walk you through, like, here's how you register for an LLC. Here's the differences between an LLC and an S Corp.
Cool.
What, like, are you a hobby or are you a business? Things like that. Mm-hmm. But the main focus of the course is I go through an actual client of mine. So somebody hired me. Like another Etsy seller hired me a couple years ago to help her out with the bookkeeping. So I literally just start with this woman hired me and I take her all the way through to the preparation of the taxes, like how I got all the bank statements, got them into QuickBooks, gave her the reports, and then go through some of like the actual metrics of what she needed to see how much she made on particular products or where she's losing money, where she's gaining money, little different things like that. But it kind of just goes through the whole process of what you need to do from beginning through tax day.
The value in that is massive, massive. So we will absolutely have a link in our show notes for people who have an interest in picking up this course. I highly, highly recommend getting it because if I would have had that knowledge early on, oh man, the heartache and the fast tracking I could have been on. But that's why we do this for all of you listening, is we bring on professionals just like Brendan to talk about these things because it's so, so, so critical. And it also makes your job easier, right, Brendan, at the end of the day when people have this knowledge?
Yeah, when you have the knowledge and you understand how to do it, it does make my life a lot easier. But I think it's more, it'll make your life a lot easier when you kind of have the knowledge that I have. Because a lot of people come and they just want the books done and then they just forget about it. Like they don't really take an interest in, well, how much did I make on this like product? Mm-hmm. Like some people don't understand that you sell a product for $10, that it actually costs you $11 after everything.
Right.
After taxes, after the fees, after you actually bought the product. So a lot of people don't really understand that, but it would definitely make my life a lot easier too, to come in and fix some of the more minor mistakes, I guess you would say.
Well, and you can have a real conversation with people and they understand at least the terminology you're talking about, so that you can have a real conversation and not just be completely educating them from scratch.
Yeah, a lot of my job is accounting 101. Like, the first week in college, it is going over that kind of stuff, which is boring, but it's the most useful in understanding like how a business runs.
Totally.
Well, and it's so crazy that, people are investing all this money into building a business and then they don't take the time to actually get these foundation things set up right.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people blindly just trust me that I know what I'm doing. And that's like scary, because there's a lot of people that'll kind of take advantage of what people like myself do, because people are so oblivious as to, like, I could tell you made $1 million or you lost $1 million and you would believe me either way. Like, because you just don't know like what the answer is. It's scary.
Yeah, it's this epic responsibility, I think, as business owners who are consultants, right? Like Rory, myself, you, it's a massive responsibility, right? Just to be like, okay, here's the foundation, here's what we're doing, here's where we're going. Yeah, I've come across that a few times. I think Rory and I together, actually, we have a couple mutual clients where they'll just like send money. And I'm like, yeah, just get me the result. And you're like, what? No, we need to do this together. Like, we're building together.
Well, and we had an episode recently about scams.
Yeah.
And it not just like online scams, but it relates to the service business as well. There are people out there who create businesses just to scam you. And you have to be very careful about who you choose to work with.
Yeah. There's not a lot, but I've had a couple of clients where the previous accountant, the previous bookkeeper, or somebody who thought they knew what they were doing was literally taking money right out of their pockets, and they had no clue because they just didn't understand it. But there is a lot of that as well in the industry of, like, you hear it all the time, bookkeepers taking thousands of dollars or millions of dollars from like a not-for-profit or something like that. I had a previous client, and he told me straight up, he was like, I knew that somebody was stealing from me because I was looking at the numbers and they just didn't make sense. Like, I knew something was missing. And he was able to actually do that because he knew what to look for, where to look for it.
Wow.
What's crazy is it's not only just like stealing, it can just be simple errors.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what to look for, you might not catch it. I had a client, this recently happened to her, where she hired someone who kind of does what you do, but in a little bit of a different way. They ended up finding an error that she made that ended up costing them, I think it was $60,000. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's someone's salary for a year that they just lost, right?
Yeah, it happens all the time. Like, a 0 turns into a 1, or you miss a 0. And that's why it's kind of important to understand like how to look at this stuff so you can catch that and not make those mistakes.
Well, and that's why it's like great to get a course like yours, because then you can have that foundational knowledge so that even if you are hiring it out, because we talk about this all the time, like, have a foundational knowledge, learn the systems so that when you hire it out, that you can understand what it is that they are doing for you and be able to question anything if it doesn't seem right.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and you also have some free resources, right, that you give to people to help them understand as well, right, on your website?
Yes, yeah. So I have I definitely always would recommend using like a QuickBooks or like an automated cloud system. But I do have like a bookkeeping spreadsheet that will, if you want to use Excel, you can you follow along with the spreadsheet. You get all the information. You can do your books in Excel. I also have, for just the Etsy and handmade stores, like an inventory template. I know a lot of people have trouble with the inventory. And then just like a very simple tax deduction. Like, here's the 10 most common tax deductions that you can take as a small business.
Ooh. So just tell us right now, what's like the top 3?
The top 3. So
not to put you on the spot, but
for me, they're obvious. But for a lot of people, a lot of people are afraid of like claiming expenses. But the top one that I would say is like your home office. A lot of people forget about that. So wherever you work out of. The second one, your car, like your mileage for your car, so your auto deductions. And the third, like, office supplies, things like that, like papers, pens, printers, things that you kind of need to run the business.
Right.
Outside of that, they are more obvious, like business expenses, like if you're paying somebody or the products, those are obviously tax write-offs. But the three big ones that people forget about, like the home office, the mileage, and then like office supplies that you kind of need that maybe you're not for a business, but those kind of things.
But you could still write it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
You used it to sign a check once.
Maybe not that far, but close. Yeah.
Yeah. You can get that at theperfectaccountingsystem.com. And that's just right on your website, right? Get all
right on the homepage. Yeah.
Nice. And then you also wanted to make a special offer for our listeners, right, for your course.
Yeah, definitely. I can do half off of the course. So the course goes for $297.
Wow. That's a huge gift. Oh my gosh.
So I can do half off of the $297.
That's incredible. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that because I think it's going to be so helpful for people. So if you're listening and you've been struggling with your accounting or you're just, don't know the ins and outs of it, then really recommend getting Brendan's course to help you understand the foundation. And then if you need the additional help to have someone do that for you, then reach out to him and he'll take care of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, just for fun, we always like to ask, just for our own entertainment purposes, if you were not an accountant, what would you be doing right now?
If I was not an accountant, wow, that's a good question. Sometimes I wonder about that. I do like sports, so I'd probably be doing something in sports, whether it be like a coach or, some type of, I would love to be an actual professional athlete, but the days are past for that. But probably something in sports.
Nice. All right.
What sport do you think would be your sport of choice?
Baseball. I like baseball.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice. All right.
Nice.
Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you again just for taking the time out of your busy schedule. My gosh, I mean, you're doing a lot. Is there any final thought that you want our listeners to know?
The end of the year is coming up, so I would definitely get on like your bookkeeping as soon as possible. So you're not waiting until April 14th. Like, I can't tell you how many people give me a call April 1st, April 2nd, all the way through the 14th that, hey, I haven't done my books all year. I need to do them real quick.
Oh, sure. Let's just do that real quick.
It happens all the time. So that would be my biggest kind of send off is get the books done if they're not done already and just keep up with them every month so that you're not rushing around and missing a lot of important things on tax day.
That's really, really important. I know for myself, 1 year, I sent it 3 days before the deadline to my accountant. She was flipping out.
That's when you send a really nice Christmas gift.
Yeah. So realize that if you're working with a bookkeeper or accountant on your stuff, there is this deadline. Everyone's on the same deadline, it's like an influx. So what you're asking is like for someone to get everything that they need to get done for like, it could be 20, 50 different people all within say a week. Like, don't put that stress on your accountant. Give them some time to actually do it right so that they have the ability to do it right, get you the best results and, avoid any potential mistakes.
Yeah, that's what it is. There's a lot of people rushing at the end of a lot of accountants, especially, like they just want to get it done, move on, and they'll be responsible for some of those mistakes because they just try to rush and get it over with, get paid themselves and move on. And that's how a lot of errors will happen and, headaches.
So basically the lesson I'm hearing here is don't be a jerk business owner. Get your taxes done when they need to get done and on time and send things off before the deadline. Thank you so much again. We will have links on how you can get connected with Brendan and his business and especially his Instagram. You have to follow him on Insta because he's so you'll enjoy that. Alrighty, that is it for now. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye. Did you know that I was in the movie Happy Gilmore? Yeah. Neither did Dominica, so in the next episode, she wanted to talk about it. She wanted to know, Is Adam Sandler really a jerk? And what was it like being on the set for the movie? We discuss the impact of success and the choices that you get to make once you're successful, and a whole lot of other behind the scenes info about Happy Gilmore and our lives that you just have to tune in to find out. In the meantime, be a good sport. Head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. That's it for this one.
Hey there, remember to like, subscribe, and be sure to ring that notification bell to receive a new episode every Tuesday. See you next week.